Telegraph on ABC Radio National. We're online, as always, at abc.net.au/RN. And today, all ears are on this. Yes, it's the dingo. We meet a breeder, a trapper, a man with a singing dingo, a scientist and an anthropologist, all with our own insights into our native dog. And you can join the discussion on our Facebook page. Good to be with you as we discover the dingo on Bush Telegraph. And my guests throughout the show this morning join us now from our Sydney studio. They are Deborah Bird-Rose, who is Professor at the Centre for Research on Social Inclusion at Macquarie University in Sydney. She's the author of a wonderful book called Dingo Makes Us Human and a new book called Wild Dog Dreaming. She's an anthropologist, a historian and a founding figure in the ecological humanities. Debbie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Michael.
Nice to have you with us. And also with you there in the Sydney studios is Dr. Brad Purcell, who is a research fellow at the University of Western Australia, and he's just written a beaut book for CSIRO called Dingo. Hi, Brad.
Good morning, Michael.
That was a pretty obvious title you came up with there.
Yeah, I didn't get to choose it.
Oh, they bossed you around at CSIRO. Dingo, they said, mate. Now tell us, Brad, how the dingo comes to be in Australia, because it hasn't been here forever, has it?
No, it hasn't. It's all a bit speculative based on old stories, I guess, but the general idea is that it came across via boat with either Asian seafarers or the Aborigines brought them across and traded the dingo about 5,000 years ago, 4,000 to 5,000 years ago.
And we suspect it's 5,000 years ago because that's what the fossil record shows, is it?
Yeah, that's what the fossil record shows, but DNA also provides that form of evidence.
Deborah, when the dingo arrived in Aboriginal Australia 5,000 years ago, it must have made quite a difference to the way people were living.
I imagine that it just had the most profound impact, and the stories and the dreaming tracks and the songs, the place of the dingo in this, big country-based worldview is so significant that tends to confirm. Because significantly, I think, there weren't any other animals that were domesticable. There weren't any other animals ever who really knew how to read people the way dogs know how to read people. So it was something totally new in the cosmos for Aboriginal people.
Well, I suppose that's right. There's that sense of companionship. Although Aborigines have such a strong sense of connectedness with country, the dingo actually comes in as part of the camp.
Yeah, the totemic system means that your kin are all around you and they're not all human. So you've got lots of family out there. But the dingoes were the ones that could actually talk back, let's say, knew their names, came in, lived in the camps, were put into the subsection system, worked collaboratively with humans in the hunt, and in every way became part of society in ways that other Australian animals never did.
Well, Deborah and Brad, we'll talk lots more as the show goes on, as you stay with me throughout the program, but let's meet some dingoes. Terry Gordon runs the Juralinga Dingo Conservation Centre at Chewton, which is in central Victoria. Now, this place was started by a bloke called Bruce Jacobs, who was a pioneer of dingo breeding and dingo research, but he died back in 2004, and the place rapidly fell into neglect. The dingoes were soon in a pretty bad way, and local reports are that they'd started fighting with each other. The property went on the market, and the dog's chances of survival were, you'd have to say, pretty grim. But Terry Gordon and her husband Hamish dug very deep. They bought the property, and they really turned it around. So what are all these dingoes doing?
Well, at the moment, they're all sussing out you. One of the dingoes is called. All the others have stopped what they're doing immediately. And then if you heard, there were little snuffs, and they're all talking about you because your behaviour is unacceptable to them.
So we're standing in the most beautiful setting under the gum trees here, and you've got flowers here. We're on the slope of a hill that goes down to a pond with green lichen all over it. It's a rainy day here in central Victoria, and all around us there are these enclosures, very spacious and comfortable-looking enclosures, and there are dingoes. How many dingoes are there here?
There's over 100 looking at you right at this moment.
So you think they speak to each other, do you?
You arrived at the front gate. I heard the snuff amongst the dingoes, and I realised there was a stranger on the property.
Hello!
Oh, there's a dingo here jumping on its hind legs, just jumping up and down in the most amazing way.
Hello, kisses and kisses.
So the dingoes are right up against the fence, and Terry is playing with them. And
Yeah, I think they're reasonably spoilt.
so those two black dogs, they're hybrid
Purebred
dogs,
dingoes.
but they're black.
Well, dingoes come in many colours. They come in white, sand, gold, rich red, tricolour, and there's also been what they call blue dingoes.
In fact, even looking over here in this pen here, where there are, I don't know, there's about 30 dingoes. There are the classic golden dingo, but there's one there that's almost pure white.
That's right, and that came from Alice Springs area. But unfortunately, they're a little bit colour conscious. We've noticed that they'll pick on the black first.
They have a problem with racial prejudice.
I think they do.
Well, that's shameful. What's your objective with this place?
First off, we believe that the dingoes here had a really tough time, and we both care about rights and wrong, and we believe that it was important to give these dogs some quality of life.
You and your husband?
My husband, Hamish.
These dogs look as though they are living busy, functional lives. They seem to have social networks all intact.
Well, they do, and throughout the day, if you watch them, you'll find they have sleep time, they have play time. They certainly have education time when the older dingoes will take the young ones down and show them how to stalk a frog or look for crickets, or they'll dig a hole.
Now, all these dingoes are sitting very happily in these large enclosures you've built. Why are they fenced like this?
They're fenced like this because when we first arrived, they had lost their leader, which was Bruce Jacobs, and during the months following Bruce's death, there was no leader of the pack, so they were all striving to take over, so there was a lot of aggression and a lot of dingoes were being badly injured. So it was important to let them break themselves up into family units.
How did you decide where to put the fences?
I would notice that about 9:30, 10 o'clock, they would all disappear into little groups. We fenced around the areas that they'd go off to, and we left the gates open for months, and then gradually we only fed each family in their area.
Now, this place isn't open to the public and you're not selling the pups. So what are you doing?
Other than keeping our bank account very low, what we're mainly trying to do is establish the purebred dingo. So we're doing a lot of DNA testing to make sure. We are desexing all the old dogs because dingoes come into season, male and female, every autumn. And we're desexing all the hybrids.
Now, why are you doing that? What's the benefit in having purebred dingoes? I mean, isn't modern Australia a place where all the dogs are going to interbreed and we're going to end up with hybrids anyway?
Sadly, that's probably it. We're into designer dogs, and now that the law has changed that people can have hybrid dingoes, providing their councils accept it, we're going to have people breeding dingoes, and there won't be the control, sadly, that there has been while it's been with Department of Primary Industry.
The Department of Primary Industry in Victoria did what?
Well, they had more control over the dingoes, but also dingo hybrids come under Department of Primary Industry, so you had to have a permit.
Permit to own the dogs or to breed them?
To own, and the permits were fairly difficult to get. And although I want to see purebred dingoes remain part of our heritage, not our history, I think it's really important to recognise that wild dogs, dingo hybrids, are causing a lot of trouble out there, but it can be dealt with.
Trouble in terms of killing stock?
They do get into stock, but domestic dogs that go wild create more problems than dingoes. A dingo harvests his food. A dingo will never go in and kill everything. He knows that he's got to harvest his food and leave some for later.
Okay, so what are the problems?
Well, dingoes come into season every year. They get out looking for a mate. They are escape artists. They're the greatest thieves out. They like other dogs. They can bite. They play by grabbing your leg, grabbing your arm. When you squeal, you get excited. They get silly. And they think it's all part of the game. And then people get hurt. So I think what's important is education.
This is Bush Telegraph on ABC Radio National, and we're talking to Terry Gordon. We're at her dingo, is it a dingo farm, is that what you call it?
No, we got rid of that word very quickly because it gave the connotation that we were breeding dingoes to farm them out, like puppy farms. and it's dingo conservation.
Early on, when you first arrived, you witnessed an extraordinary ritual that could only be described as mourning.
That was when the oldest dingo here, the only bobtail that Bruce had bred, passed away. And I was quite amazed the way they spent all day, all lying very quietly, and 3 at a time going down and sitting there with her for a few minutes.
So her body is laying where? As we sit here now, where's her body?
Her body was laying in the valley from here, about 50, 60 metres away, and all the dogs were laying along the edge of the hill just watching. And 3 at a time would go down. One would sit at the head, one either side. They'd sit there quietly for anything up to 10 minutes, and then they'd give her a snuff around her ears and her nose. They'd walk away and not look back. And that went on right throughout the day. I hadn't been here very long. We'd taken over in September. This was December. So I opted to see whether or not the dogs would accept me. So I walked down and took up the first line and sat at the end. I just heard a little snuffs go through the dog. So when the 3 ahead of us moved, I walked down, and to my amazement, only 2 dogs got up and walked beside me. I took the head of the dog, they took either side. After about 10 minutes, I got up, rubbed her behind the ear, did the same as they did, and walked away and didn't look back. And then I came and sat where they couldn't see me for the rest of the day and watched them continue all day.
So in that respect, they're a bit like people, or we're a bit like dogs.
I think we all need to understand that anyone or anything that is close to something else has to grieve when they lose their partner.
Terry Gordon there at the Jiralinga Dingo Conservation Centre at Chewton, which is in central Victoria. And you can read more on their website, which we'll put on a link on that to our own website, abc.net.au/rn. It's not open to the public, and as you heard there, their pups are not for sale.